Welcome to Vanderbilt's Poetry Room. I'm Mary Anne Caton. I'm with the library staff. I'm so glad you could be here, Reyna. Could you tell us how you came to Vanderbilt this week before we get started?
Well, I was invited here to come by Lorraine and Gretchen, who invited me. It's my first time here on this campus, and it's really beautiful, and I'm very happy to be here.
Well, welcome to Vanderbilt. I'm gonna ask you a few questions about books in your life, and we'll go from there. Laura Miller wrote that the first book we fall in love with shapes us every bit as much as the first person we fall in love with. And this emotional attachment may also affect choices we make as adults. What was the first book you fell in love with?
Well, the first book I fell in love with was The House on Mango Street by Sandra Cisneros. And I'm not the only one. I think a lot of my writer friends, especially my female writer friends, also share this in common with me, in that book was the book that inspired us. And for me, it was a very important book to read because I did not grow up reading Latino literature. And I had a professor at my community college who introduced me to The House on Mango Street outside of her class because she saw that I really needed to be exposed to Latino literature, and she was trying to encourage me to pursue a career as a professional writer. And I told her, well, Latinos don't write books. And so then she set out to remedy that. And I said that because I hadn't read any Latino books, so I assumed that we didn't write books. And when my teacher said, you should be a professional writer, I didn't know what she was talking about. So she set out to educate me on Latino literature. And the second book she gave me was The House on Mango Street. And that book really spoke to me. I think I was really desperate to have a book that I could relate to, because most of my adolescence, even though I was an avid reader, I think I was reading a lot of windows, and I didn't really have access to books that were mirrors, where I could see myself and my experience. And The House on Mango Street was definitely that book where I could finally see myself, where instead of looking through a window, I felt that I was a family member being invited over for dinner. And it was just a beautiful experience. And I just, there was one character in that book that spoke to me, and it's the title, the story called Sally. And Sally is a girl who lives with an abusive alcoholic father who doesn't let her go out, and he's very strict with her. And there was a line in the book that said, Sally, did you ever wish you could just walk away, go away from here? And to me, like, I had that yearning, to leave my home sometimes because I was very unhappy. And anyway, that book it was beautiful, and after I read it, it made me want to keep writing.
Thank you. Have you reread it? And if you have, how do you react to rereading it now?
I reread it a couple times, and I still find it just as beautiful as I did when I was 19. But I think what makes it even more special now is that I've gotten to know Sandra Cisneros. I've gotten to share the stage with her. I've got a chance to spend the night at her house, and so it's even more meaningful because I'm no longer a young girl reading a book of an author that I admire and who from far away. Like now when I pick up that book, like I just can't believe that in addition to having this gift of the book, I also have another gift, which is to be able to spend time with Sandra once in a while, and to be able to know the person who wrote that book that inspired me so much. So that makes it even more special to me.
Thank you. Is there a book that captured your imagination as a reader after that, before you began writing professionally?
A book that captured my imagination. One of my favorite books was The Mists of Babylon by Mary Anne Bradley. And I really, really loved that book. And I wasn't expecting to like it, just because it's not really like my genre that I like to read. And it was a very thick book, and and then like the Arthur legend, all that kind of stuff. It wasn't something that I was really interested in when I picked up the book. It was the cover that drew me to it, and then once I started reading it, I just couldn't stop. And I just loved the book. I loved that it was all about the women, and very strong women, and it was so detailed. Like, you almost felt that you were there, and it definitely, like, to me, like, it just blew me away. Like, the way she approached the book, where it never felt that. It never felt that you could see the research. It was more like she did such a good job bringing that time and place and her characters to life, that you just felt that you were there, being part of it all. So I totally love that book.
Besides The House on Mango Street, is there another book that set you on your professional path, and how did that come about?
Another book that set me on my professional path. There's been a lot of books. I think one of them was like Gloria Saldúa, for example. She wrote Borderlands, La Frontera, and she's one of our most renowned Chicana scholars, and she's influenced so many other writers also. So I liked her work. Ana Castillo, Julia Álvarez, Isabel Allende, Laura Esquivel. I really love Latina and Chicana writers, because I feel that, especially like from Sandra Cisneros' generation and Gloria Saldúa's generation, where they had a really tough time getting their works published. And they faced a lot of sexism and racism in the publishing industry, and they didn't give up. They kept fighting for their stories and for their right to tell their truth, and I find them really inspirational, and I'm very grateful to them, because I feel that all the work that they did, they created a path for me, and for other writers of my generation. So I find all of those writers just people that I really admire, and I want to make sure that I keep opening that path and making it wider and wider for the next generation, because I think it's really important that not only am I being mentored by these great writers, but I also need to mentor the next generation. And that's really the way that we're going to keep making a lot of progress when it comes to our visibility in the publishing industry.
In your work now, is there a book that influences you?
In my work now, well, there are books that I really like. I really love The Snow Child by Ewan Ivy, I think it's how you say her name. The Snow Child is just really beautifully written, very poetic, and I love to read that book once in a while. I also like another book called The Enchanted, and I can't remember who the author is. It's a woman, and that book is also really beautiful. It's just so poetic. I love Khalil Gibran's The Prophet. It's another book that I like to reread. And let's see, what are other books that I love? Daisy Hernandez wrote a memoir called A Cup of Water Under My Bed, which I loved. And another book that speaks to me a lot is also Justin Torres, his novel called We the Animals. It reminds me a little bit of The House on Mango Street in that it's the same approach. They're like vignettes, coming of age story, but from a male perspective. And it's also another beautifully written book that I love to read. And I use excerpts of it whenever I teach creative writing. It's such a great book to show students.
Is there a book that you like to share with friends and family or coworkers?
That I give? I usually tend to give books because I meet so many authors, and I do a lot of book festivals or events. I always make sure that I buy the books of authors that I'm on panels with or that I meet at these places. And then the best part is that I get them signed. So I try to give signed books to my family. So I know a few weeks ago I was in Tucson at the Tucson Book Festival, and I bought books by Luis Alberto Urrea, and I had him sign them, and that's what I gave away. This coming week I'm gonna be at the LA Times Festival of Books, so I'm gonna pick up a lot of books there and I just have them signed. And my mother-in-law, she knows that. That's what she gets all the time, is signed books. I got her a book signed by Isabel Allende recently, and I thought that was really cool.
Is there a book that you were given that you remember particularly?
A book that I was given, well, my very first book that I was given was The Moths and Other Stories by Elena Maria Viramontes, and it was my community college professor who gave it to me for my 19th birthday. And it was the first book I ever received as a gift. And it was very special to me. I still have it, actually. I kept it all these years, just because it was the first book anybody ever gave me. And I thought that was really nice. And she's given me a lot of books since then, but that was my special one because it was the first.
Well, thank you very much for telling us your book love.
Oh, thank you.